to Dort. This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to dunk. This is Lou Dort, and I'm down to Dort.
I'm Josh Giddey, and I'm down to dunk.
Hey, this is Kenny Hustle, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Darius Baisley, and I'm down to dunk.
I'm Mike Muscala, and I'm down to dunk.
This is Kapoku, and I'm down to dunk.
I love cereal. Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cracklin' Oat Bran.
Oh, I can have these. I'm gonna share with my team, but I'm gonna hog most of it.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. You can go to theathletic.com/down to dunk and get the Athletic for $1 a month for 6 months. It's basically free for 6 months. And you can go read a beat writer mock draft that I participated in this week. And the Thunder got a really nice little tankathon spin. We're going to do some tankathon spins and run through scenarios that lots of teams can go through. And the Thunder got the second pick. And it was a happy spin, which makes me just believe that we're destined for 7. We can't.
And I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it, Andrew, but Andrew took Keegan Murray, guys, at 2.
I took Keegs.
He took Keegs. He's fallen in love.
I need a sure thing. I don't want that upside business.
Well, if we're going for the playoffs next year,
that's right.
We got to get someone who's ready.
That's right. Lou Dort needs someone who's ready, and the most ready player is Keegan Murray. So go check that out. This is a joke. If you don't understand jokes, sorry. Let's take a little tankathon spin ourselves, Al. I'm gonna hit Sim Lottery. I'm gonna close my eyes, and then
it's really important you close your eyes.
This is our destiny. I feel like I have to. All right, here we go. And the Thunder get the. These are my favorite scenarios. By far my favorite scenario. So number 1 pick goes to Orlando, number 2 to Houston, number 3 to San Antonio, number 4 to Oklahoma City via the Clippers. And then the Thunder get the 6th pick.
4 and 6.
So
that's pretty juicy, though. We'd love that.
It is very juicy. You have to be. You're not like jumping around ecstatic. Well, maybe you are actually. Never mind. If the Clippers pick jumps up, you are jumping around excited.
Oh,
You get 2 pieces. And you call San Antonio. Like if you really want 3, if the guy you want is going to be at 3 or even at 1, like this is a chance where you could trade a scenario where you could trade to 1. Or if you called Orlando, say, hey, listen, like you already have a big. You have lots of bigs. We'll give you 4 and 6 for 1. And I think
for sure. I'm so interested to see what Orlando does in this draft. If they stay in that top 3.
It's one of the worst drafts for them to be picking top 3 because what they really need is someone to lead their team. And the problem is there's really not that guy in this class. I mean, I think Paolo Banchero is the closest thing to it.
Like the way we talk about our roster, I feel like there are still some obvious areas of improvement. Like you look at the 4 and 5 and you're like, we could slot in a 30-minute guy in one of those spots, like super easily.
Yeah.
For the Magic, like I like Oklahoma City's talent more.
Yeah.
But in terms of their depth of like young talent, like if you take a guard, okay, that means that like you're taking away minutes from one of Suggs, Fultz, or Cole Anthony, who you like apparently. RJ, yeah. So like I almost said RJ Hunter, RJ Hampton. It's just tough. Like they have to make real decisions. Whereas like with the Thunder, even if they took Jaden Ivey, I would still feel like they're going to make this work.
Yeah, and
I'm not really that worried about it. The Magic have to like choose. They're choosing a path in this draft, one way or another.
I know.
Whether they want to or not, they're going to have to.
And I still don't feel good about it. I think you feel good if you're Houston and you have Jalen Green already, like you feel pretty good because like we have a go-to scorer. If we add a big man with him,
right?
Like, that's great. Detroit, even I think you feel good. OKC, I think you feel good because you've got 2 guys that can run your offense. Like this, to me, this draft is there's just a lot of guys that can help be your like 1B, like or like really great complementary piece with like the ability to become better than that. Like that's like the top of this draft, which is not a bad place for, like I said, OKC, Detroit, Houston. I don't think it's a bad spot for those guys. Even Portland, if Portland jumped up, like it's not a horrible draft
Yeah.
for them to jump up. But for Orlando, it's tough. Who do you like it for? Let's just say the three bigs are the ones that are taken, because I just believe that those are like the three best players in this draft.
Yeah.
Let's say that they're gone and you're at 4 and 6. Who are you targeting with those two picks?
Based on what I've read so far, and then this player is the reason why you say based on what I've read so far. Like I think it might be Shaden Sharp for me.
Okay.
That PD Web article,
Yeah.
detailing Shaden, got me really excited because the things that he's not as good at, it feels like he would be better in, like the Thunder system would help.
Sure.
Kind of iron some of those things out.
Mhm.
And the things he is good at, which is the shot making. And if you just go and look at his stats, you're going to say, oh, whatever. Depending on where you're looking at, he shot like 35% or whatever.
Mhm.
But the degree of difficulty of those shots was so insanely high.
Yeah.
That like I think there's an elite shooter there.
Yeah.
And then you factor in like the athleticism, the size, which that's really the difference between like him and Ivy for me. Because Ivy is 6'4", Shaden is 6'6", and is still super young. So who knows? I mean, he could grow another inch or something.
Ivy's beefier.
He is beefier. He is beefier for sure. But he's a little bit older and he is a little bit shorter.
And I feel better about, just from hearing what people have said, I feel better about Shaden's jump shot too.
Yeah.
Like
so I don't know. Right now, I'm like really excited about Shaden Sharp. I just think he would be a potentially really good fit as a off-ball scorer. Because if you read the article, like the main weakness that PD Web highlighted was that when he has the ball in his hands, he can kind of get like a black hole like feeling to him, where he's just not making decisions super quick. I don't think he would be on ball a ton in Oklahoma City. I think they would have him just being this like off-ball scorer, and he's an awesome shooter. Like I just think I really like that fit, and I like the idea that this guy has like the history with his high school rankings and stuff. Like this is like a true top recruit that just happens to be entering this draft right now. And I get that like you can't really watch too much of him.
No, because you only watch good. I was saying this the other day.
Yes, you only watch good.
Like, and that's not. It's cool. Like that's cool to know that he can do good things. But I want to like, how does he screw up, and how does he react after he screws up? Like those are big things when you're watching prospects. It's like not only like what can you do, but what don't you do, and how do you react to it? I think is a big deal.
And then you factor in like the Shea connection.
Yeah,
with like the guy's name's Dwayne Washington, who was like an advisor for Shea and is now an advisor for Shaden. They're both Canadian. Like I think you could build a really, I mean, it's totally superfluous. Like who really cares? But like building like this Canadian core in Oklahoma City is just kind of a fun idea.
It's kind of like whenever the Thunder didn't draft Kelly Oubre. There's like the DC connection.
Biggest draft mistake ever, Andrew.
Okay, so then if they have the 6th pick, what do you do there? Let's say Detroit takes Keegan.
Wait, they're taking Keegan?
They're taking Keegs.
So Ivy is still there at 6? Oh man,
Ivy's still there at 6. AJ Griffin's 6.
I think I don't know. I'm coming around to the idea of Jalen Duren, and because you're getting a guy who I really trust his shot at 4, I'm a little bit more open to taking a guy who is currently a non-shooter. I'm trying to open my mind up to the idea that like the Thunder don't have to get a shooter at every single pick.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be more flexible with that stance, because if Shea goes back to shooting what he did or just close to it, and you have someone like Shaden Sharp who you feel good about. I was looking at Trey Mann's numbers the other day, and like it's kind of wild what he did this year. I mean, you look at his overall 3-point percentage, and you're like, yeah, whatever. He shot 37% on step back threes.
Yeah, that's
He
pretty
shot 40% from the corners. Like, I think there's a real shooter there.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm a little bit more willing to take a non-shooter, even though that like terrifies me in some ways, just because of OKC's history and the fact that, okay, if we build around this non-shooting center now, am I just going to hate myself in a few years when we're like, we just need one shooter?
Yeah.
But like, I don't have the big man concerns about Jalen Duren that you would have about, like Steven Adams or someone, where you're like, is this guy going to get literally played off the floor
Yeah.
in the playoffs? Like, I don't have those concerns.
Uh-huh.
So I'm a little bit more open to that idea. And again, you're betting on youth and athleticism. And
yeah,
now that I'm saying it out loud, those kind of sound like old Thunder picks.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
They do. Ivy feels old Thunder to me too. I might go Sharp and AJ Griffin.
Yeah.
And open yourself up to playing. Like I just think about the Celtics, right? Where like they're just incredibly switchy and everybody can do something on the offensive end. And if you run like Shea, Sharp, AJ Griffin, Giddey, whatever big you can get, like
Kamagate.
Yeah, you can get it
at
later
30.
Or JRE, who's like very Grant Williamsy,
Mm-hmm.
like that to me is incredibly interesting because then you have like real shooting, on the floor with those two.
Yeah.
And those guys can do more as well. And I just like the idea of just if you can get a wing to be a good player on your team and maybe one of those guys pops, like you are in such a good place,
Yeah.
Maybe Shaden is not who we think he is, but AJ is. Like just swing at both, honestly, is kind of how I feel because I'm not like so in love with anybody else other than the top three guys. Like I'm not so in love with anybody else that I'm like, you have to, let's go for fit and let's get Duren or let's get Tari Eason in here, who's a little bit bigger. Like I'm just, to me, if you can get AJ Griffin or Shaden Sharp, who like, and you can say, like, oh, they're both 6'6", they're both 18.
Yeah.
Like they could be, Shaden Sharp could be 6'8" by the time it's all said and done. Like we don't know. So to me, that would be really intriguing because if that worked out in some way, like you have these two like pretty big wings to kind of flank the offense for Shea and Giddey, like that to me is like that's very, very intriguing.
Yeah, I'd probably feel more comfortable taking a big if it ends up more like 4 and 12.
Yeah.
Because I'm like you. After the first couple picks, I'm just not in love with anyone yet.
Yeah.
I keep waiting for someone to like really excite me, and that article on Shaden did, but I'm struggling with the other guys in that like 6 to 10 range.
Yeah. And I haven't watched a lot of those guys in like real detail yet, but that's how I feel today.
How are you feeling about? I feel like you got to do what's the opposite of eating crow? Well, I guess taking a victory lap on the Atlanta Hawks, Andrew. It took a little while. It took another season, but I feel like it came through for you.
I'm feeling good. I mean, I guess if you're a Hawks fan, you still feel good that you got to the Eastern Conference Finals, but I think you feel less certain about your future. Like what are we? Like, what are we going to be? The Eastern Conference is so incredibly difficult now and won't be getting any easier for a while. I don't know. I think, I mean, my whole point was like, why are you hitting the fast forward button now? And that's the thing. That's exactly what Sam, like, this is the scenario that Sam was talking about that he wants to avoid, where he's like, don't touch that freaking button. Like, don't touch it. Because it, like, the button was Danilo Gallinari, and Bogdanovich and just like those, you don't need to do that yet. If they had another lottery pick on their team, I think that you feel better, especially now that we know like how strong that past draft was. I think that you feel a little bit like, oh man, because if we could have added Franz Wagner or Jonathan Kuminga or Josh Giddey or any of those guys, or if we got really lucky and we got Scotty Barnes or somebody in that draft, you're feeling so good. And like now it's just like, oh man, like what exactly are we? Like where exactly are we heading? And I feel you still feel good about Trae Young, but then after that, I think there's a ton of question marks.
It feels like they fast forward themselves into being the Blazers of the Eastern Conference. Because like everyone knew at the time with that Blazers run that like, yes, you could celebrate it. Yes, it was awesome, but there was like a flukiness to it.
Yeah.
And it was borne out by the fact that they got swept in the conference finals. Obviously, it was the Warriors, and then they come back, and what that does when you do it so early is now the expectations for the Hawks are like sky high.
Oh yeah.
And why wouldn't they be? Like if you were a fan of the Hawks, it's like we just made the conference finals. Like if you go back and I was reading Chris Kirshner's kind of like autopsy report of the season, and he was talking about how at the beginning of the season, like there was all these expectations to take the next step. The only next step then is the finals.
NBA finals, baby.
And so their expectations have been set sky high for a team that in reality is probably more like the Blazers, where you feel good about them making the playoffs most years, assuming you get decent health.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be a contender anytime soon. And that conference finals run gives you this false sense of being so much closer than you really are. And I don't know if any team, I mean, I guess it happened to the Blazers after they made their conference finals run because it's kind of fallen apart since then.
Yeah.
But I don't know if any team's been like humbled as much as the Hawks did as a conference finalist, going to then having to fight in the play-in and do all that. Yeah. So I don't know what they do. I think that if you're a Hawks fan, you tell yourself, listen, DeAndre Hunter looked really good in that last game. Maybe he's coming back. Yeah. We still like Okongwu. You still have Herter, who's young. You still have Trae Young. But it's funny how like the whole idea with Atlanta was Travis Schlenk came from Golden State. He's building the Golden State model.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, it feels more like he's building the Portland model, which is like like undersized guard who can't defend.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
And they don't have anybody as good as CJ.
Right. Yeah, they don't.
They need one of their guys to develop into that, or they need to trade for somebody or something. I mean, they've been due for a consolidation trade. Like maybe that's how they take the next step. Like there's ways to do it. However, Atlanta's not a destination. Like it just hasn't been a destination for NBA players, even though it's a big city.
You know who I've been you know whose name has been coming up? I've been listening to a lot of like local podcasts. You know whose name keeps coming up when people are talking about trades and free agency? Luguentz Dort.
Oh, really?
I had the Charlotte Hornets guy, Richie Randall. He DM'd me just asking about like what is Dort's status.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to a Blazers podcast and they brought him up. You think about Atlanta, like Dort would be
Blazers
like
Dort,
a very nice target for Atlanta as well. I'm not saying that the Thunder could or should trade. I mean, I guess they could trade him. I'm not saying they should trade him.
Yeah.
But when fans of other teams are looking around the league and they're trying to look for like quick fixes, like a 23-year-old on a cheap deal who's already a really good defender and can score, like other teams' fans are very excited about Lu Dort.
He'd be a great fit next to Trae Young because he's like they need a point of attack defender that can take pressure off of Trae. He's kind of perfect for them. I don't know what the trade would be.
Yeah, that's the problem because like they're not going to trade you Okongwu, and after that it's like Jalen Johnson, which the Thunder had a chance to take Jalen Johnson, didn't take him.
No, thank you.
So I don't really think there is a deal there. But I'm just kind of interested to see, and obviously we won't know this, but I wonder if a team will make a offer for Dort.
What about Herter for Dort? Would you do that?
Probably not.
Yeah,
That doesn't really get me that excited.
he didn't have a good year, and
He's
especially
already getting paid.
and if this scenario happens that we talked about, which we don't know what's going to happen with the draft, but if that scenario happened and the Thunder are like, yeah, let's just take some wings.
Yeah.
You don't need them, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Hawks are just such a good like warning.
Yeah,
To
they are
Thunder
they are a
fans.
warning of don't touch that friggin' button.
And
Like,
and
that's-
I'm sure there's Atlanta fans and there's probably even Thunder fans who'd say like, listen, I would take so few teams in this league make the conference finals.
yeah,
I would take that conference finals run because it's been so long since the Thunder have been to one. I mean, it's 6 years now since they've
Yeah.
been to a conference finals, and
Yeah.
it's probably going to be a lot longer. So I get it, but man, when you do that, you have to nail those moves so perfectly.
This is like the whole an arrival, not an appearance thing, and the Hawks are going to be in the playoffs again. Like that will happen again. But what he meant by that is we're going to arrive as the team that we're going to be. Like we're not going to do this whole like they needed Ben Simmons to become a basket case and for Philly to fall apart to get there. You know, like there were a lot of circumstances that lined up for them to get there. I think what Sam and his team want is to have the team that's going to get there and have as good a chance the next season to do it again. And you know, that's what he's talking about.
That kind of feels like the Simmons trade destination for me. Because in order for the Nets to trade Simmons, you're going to need a team that's pretty desperate. And when you look when you look at the tradable pieces Atlanta has,
yeah,
they don't get you like super excited. But if you're the Nets, you look at all those depth pieces, whether it's Capella or John Collins or whoever, like all those guys would significantly help the Nets.
Yeah.
Now the Nets would want to come out of that feeling like we got multiple depth pieces.
It's essentially undoing the original Harden trade.
It is. Yeah. It's like trying to get Jarrett Allen back.
Can we get Jarrett Allen back? Because like right now, if you called the Cavs and said, let's trade Jarrett Allen straight up for Ben Simmons, they would just laugh at you and hang up.
Right.
Which is crazy to think about because like that was only one of the pieces that it took to get James Harden in town. Like they should have just not. I mean, in hindsight, it's hard to say like you shouldn't have traded for James Harden, but they had like a good like basketball team before they made that deal
that we never really got to see over an extended period of time.
Yeah. I mean, Jarrett Allen would have been incredible for them this season. But
I'm thankful that I don't have to think too hard about Ben Simmons. I just can't imagine being a Sixers fan and then being a Nets fan right now and having to like go through the off season thinking about Ben Simmons when you literally know nothing. But you're going to get reports every single day. Like you almost have like too much information and zero information when it comes to Ben Simmons.
Right. And if you're Houston, like you just have to be just dancing.
If there were any like remaining questions about whether Houston made the right move, and if it's true that they basically went to Harden, was like, would you rather go to Brooklyn or to Philly?
Yeah.
And that the reason they chose Brooklyn was just because that was where Harden and they wanted to do right by him. Like, man, they got lucky that he did not choose Philly, which he eventually chose.
Yeah.
Because that trade, in retrospect, can you imagine? I mean, of course, we don't know. I mean, maybe Simmons goes to Houston and is playing at this point because it's much lower stakes than having to come back in Game 4 of this like marquee playoff matchup.
Yeah.
But if I were a Houston fan, I would definitely feel like I dodged a bullet. And now you look at Brooklyn and you're like, those picks, I'm feeling great about those picks. Are they really going to give 5 years, $250 million to Kyrie? Great. Sign them up. Lock yourselves in.
I know. It's absolutely insane. Let's take a quick break, and then I want to talk about the all-rookie first team. And we're back after that quick break. Al, the all-rookie first teams will be announced at some point. I actually don't even know when.
Second teams too?
Yeah, second teams too. Yeah.
Okay. This year you could do a third team.
You could. In past years, There's
You could barely do a first team.
yeah, barely. There were years where it was like, oh my gosh, do we do it based on minutes played? Like, how do we do this?
Yeah.
This season, it's incredible. So let's talk about. I want to talk about locks for the all rookie first team, and just talk about, does Josh Giddey have a chance to make it? Cade Cunningham, lock him in.
I lock him up.
Rookie of the year, Scotty Barnes, lock him in.
Lock him up.
Lock him up. Evan Mobley, lock him up.
Yep.
I would lock in Franz Wagner too.
I think he's less of a lock than those first three, but I still feel I would like bet on him making the first team.
Yeah. And so it's this last slot that I think where you could make the case for Herb in this slot.
And I think if voting had happened during the playoffs, Herb would have made it.
Yeah. I mean, he played a ton of games, played a ton of minutes. Herb had 130 steals this season. That's 50 more steals than second place Scotty Barnes. 50.
Wow.
I mean, that stat alone is insane. If you just love potential and you're West Coast guy, you might put Jonathan Kuminga there. It's kind of hard to argue him, but the guy I think is going to get that slot is Jalen Green. Now, if you're a Thunder fan, you think, wait. Jalen Green didn't have a good start to his season. He was horrible. Let's just take a look at the overall numbers. He's second in total points amongst rookies. He's first in made threes and shot 34% on like really high degree of difficulty threes. He's second in free throw attempts, shooting almost 80% from the line. He's 11th in rebounds and 10th in assists. He also played a lot more games. He played 13 more games than Josh Giddey did. Cade played 10 more. Mobley played 15 more. Kuminga played 16 more. Bones Highland played 15 more. Şengün played 18 more. Scotty Barnes played 20 more games. Herb played 24 more games. Franz Wagner played 25 more games than Josh Giddey. I think that alone is going to knock him to the second team. Just the games played. He only played 54 games. And I just don't think... I think that is going to hurt him the most. And I know that he won Rookie of the Month all those months. That's great. He can have those awards at home. However, I just have a hard time believing that voters are going to look at, because the thing is, like, how many of these voters sat and watched all 54 games of Josh Giddey? I'd say it's maybe like 2.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who has a vote for the all rookie teams, but my guess is that there's one person from Oklahoma City, and that might be the only person that watched all of those games, and might be the only person that votes him on the all rookie first team, because he did do impressive stuff. He was third in total rebounds, even only playing 54 games, third in total rebounds, second in assists, 12th in points. So you can assume if he played the extra 10 games that Cade Cunningham did, or the extra 13 games that Jalen Green did, like, his stats would look pretty good. And they still look pretty good. And he was a really good player. But I do think that at the end of the day, I think it will be Jalen Green that will get that 5th slot. And it could be Green and Herb. It could be Franz and Green. Whoever it is. I just don't think that. I think that people are going to remember the end of the season, and they're going to say, yeah, Giddey was good, but he didn't play enough. Let's put him on the second team.
Yeah, and it's completely about the class. Like, if you put Josh Giddey in the Brogdon Embiid class, when people were trying
He might win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he legitimately might win Rookie of the Year, only playing whatever he played, because that was just like such a weak rookie season, a rookie class. So I don't really care. I'm fine with him being. In fact, Andrew, I would say I don't really care about awards anymore. I feel like I put in my time in the 2017 MVP wars, and the more it goes on, the less interested I am in awards. At this point, I just want to know who's going to win the championship. I want to know who's going to be Finals MVP. Like, those are the players I'm trying to focus more on, because I'm sick of getting so hung up on who was the most valuable player in the regular season, and then they just flame out in the playoffs. Whether it's, and this isn't even a shot at Jokic, but like Embiid right now too. Like that last game with Embiid, like his thumbs hurt. Why is he getting beat by Precious Achua over and over and over again? Like it's just frustrating. And you look at someone now like Jason Tatum, and it's like, well, here's a guy I feel like I can believe in.
Oh yeah, man.
And obviously, this wasn't his year. He didn't start out great, but if he comes back and has another year, like he's going to be in the MVP conversation, and you'll probably feel a lot better about it because the Celtics are just like a much better team. But I don't know. I'm just like sick of the awards. Like I don't know what any of them mean anymore. I don't really care. The Defensive Player of the Year thing. Like I get why people were mad about Marcus Smart. I get why people didn't or like wanted Marcus Smart to win.
Yeah.
Like the change in those odds after he sent out that quote retweet of Seth Partnow's tweet, which I brought up, like it's crazy. Like I don't know what any of it means anymore. And it feels like it's become an exercise like outside of the NBA. Like it's more just something for us to entertain ourselves with than having like any real meaning anymore. And I'm just bored with it all. And so I don't care if Josh Giddey gets second team. I don't care if they don't put him on any team. I don't care anymore, Andrew. I don't care about Rookie of the Month. I don't care about any of that anymore. Awards are dumb.
Maybe we'll care when we start winning again.
No. If the Thunder have an MVP candidate, I want to promise here today, Andrew, that I will not be one of these fans that just I almost said a bad word, that just posts constantly on Twitter. I'm not going to turn into like Swipe a Cam. Andrew, are you familiar with Swipe a Cam?
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
I promise that to you.
Okay.
Which we were kind of that the Westbrook year.
Yeah, I know. It
was miserable.
I'll hold you to it.
Thank you.
People are talking about that Franz is an NBA smart guy. He is, but he's like legitimately also very good. And saying that like my argument that no one watched Giddey. The problem is that like people needed to watch Giddey because he only played 54 games. It's not that like people were watching Franz Wagner. They weren't watching him either. However, people are gonna go to NBA.com/stats and start sorting those stats. And when they see Franz Wagner, games played, what he did statistically this season, it's impressive. And that's the point. Is like to me, like some of Giddey's stats are impressive. But what was really impressive is if you actually watched him play, where you're like, oh my gosh, like he makes his teammates better. Like he makes guys better. But that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. And that's the point of saying like nobody watched him in comparison to Franz, because Franz played a lot more games than he.
When you consider how hard it is to be efficient as a rookie. The fact that Franz Wagner played 30 minutes a game, 79 games, and his shooting splits were 47, 35, and 86.
Yeah.
Like, that's just incredibly hard to do as a rookie. I don't care how good or bad the team is. That is really hard to do. We have not had, Kevin Durant didn't shoot those percentages when he came into the league. Yeah. Like, it's really hard to do that. So, yeah, I'm totally fine with Franz getting it. And talking about, like, you need to watch him, I feel like Trey Mann's, like, and we've talked about it, like the ultimate version of that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Because his stats are, you're like, oh man, he kind of sucked as a rookie, and you can talk yourself into it just from the stats. But if you were there to watch him on TV, or if you saw him in person, it's just like, wow, like there's some real stuff there with him.
Yeah, that's why, like, not to pick on her. Okay, I won't say it. Never mind. Well, I was just going to say, sometimes at the end of the year or even across a full year, guys put up good stats. They score a lot of points for bad teams. But if you're actually watching it, nothing of it really stands out as like, oh, this is super impressive. It's more just like they're accumulating stats.
Yeah.
Whereas like Trey didn't really accumulate stats, but the things he did do look like they are going to develop into something very real.
Yeah.
Like you can't deny how much room he creates on his step backs. That is something, it's not unique to Trey, but the amount of space is kind of unique. That is like a real NBA skill, where there have been other players in Thunder Pass, not naming any names, who have maybe scored more points, been successful at accumulating stats, But watching how they score those points, there's nothing there where I'm like, that's gonna be like his calling card in the NBA. Like trying to find an actual real NBA skill.
Yeah, trying to replicate it is
Yeah.
more difficult. Okay. I thought it might be interesting to look at a couple teams that are very successful right now and discuss their path to being successful, especially through the draft. And a couple teams that aren't attracting, big time free agents. Like they kind of have to build like the Thunder are building now. And that's the Suns and the Bucks. And let's talk about the Suns first, because I think a lot of people look at the Suns and are like, oh, that's what the Thunder need to be. Like that's how do we become the Suns? Let's take a look at how it actually happened. So before their current run, they last made the playoffs in 2010. Was the last time before they made their finals run last year. And in 2010, 2011, they went 40 and 42. So let's just call that their Poku draft. We have our Poku draft, which is like sans like our first real draft. In 2011, they took Markieff Morris at 13. The next year, 2012, they took Kendall Marshall at 13. The following year, in 2013, they were really, really bad. They got the 5th pick in the draft. They took Alex Len.
I talked myself into Alex Len that year.
This is that's draft number 2 for them. Let's just say that's draft number 2 for
Draft
them.
number 2.
We've got Kendall Marshall and Alex Len. Draft number 3, 2014, TJ Warren, known loser, and Tyler Ennis, both selected in the team.
You still holding out. His bubble performance didn't sway you permanently.
No, definitely not. 2015, they're picking 13th. They get Devin Booker. That's their first good draft. We're 4 years in. Year 5, they're going for it. 2016, they have the 4th pick and they have some ammo, and they take Dragon Bender and Marquise Chris. That's your draft number 5. Draft number 6, they have the 4th pick again. They stink. They take Josh Jackson. We're 6 drafts in now. 6. So think about, like, I want to become the Suns. How do we become the Suns? They're 6 drafts in, and they've had what I would say one really good draft and one decent draft with Markieff Morris, who is we only say that one's good because he just stayed in the NBA for a long time. You could even call that and he was drafted 13th. Fine. 6. 7th draft, 2018. They get Ayton. Great. That's awesome. 2019, they get the 6th pick. They trade it for Šarić and the 11th pick and took Cam Johnson, which looks like an absolute steal of a trade. And then 2020, their last pick in the lottery, they took Jalen Smith. And we all know how that ended up, that they took Torrey Craig at the 10th slot because they traded him for Torrey Craig. So that's 10 drafts. 10. And the Suns had, and I'm being generous when I say 4 good drafts out of 10 to get here. And they had made some other trades. Obviously, they got Mikal Bridges in a trade in 2018, which is great. And that's when like new management took over, 2018, and things started to shift a little bit for them. But the path to get there, Devin Booker's kind of smashed in the middle of these just horrendous decisions. Kendall Marshall, Alex Len, TJ Warren, Tyler Ennis. TJ Warren, by the way, a player that they had to jettison him out of town because he was too much of a locker room cancer for them. They had to get him out of there. And they were willing to pay a draft pick to get him gone. Talented player, good player, but hurting their culture, actively hurting their culture. And so you get lucky with Devin Booker. You draft 4th 2 years in a row. I mean, they draft 5th, 4th, 4th. and they got nothing out of those 3. And they also traded for another top 10 pick, and Marquise Chris, and got nothing out of that one too. And all they had to do was hit on Booker, they hit on Ayton, and they hit on Bridges. That's 3. And they traded for Bridges, and they made the very much the right deal. And they did the right deal with Cam Johnson too, trading back. Sometimes trading back seems like, oh my gosh, why are they doing this? Are they going to have another chance at like a good lottery pick? Well, it just turns out they just did the exact right thing with taking Cam. And then they did the exact wrong thing the next year with taking Jalen Smith, where we had to give them the benefit of the doubt with taking the older big at that slot. So when we think about like, how can we how can the Thunder become the Suns, where you're just the top of the league dominating? You don't want to take their path. Their path was bad. The Thunder have already almost cemented that they're not taking that path, because they wanted for years to be good. Even after 2015, it was well known that Devin Booker was a good player, and they were trying to put the pieces around him, and Bender and Chris and Jackson, and it was just excruciating. It was so bad. And you can go back and you can look at the drafts and say, oh, they should have taken that guy or this guy. Yeah. But to make the wrong pick 6 out of 10 drafts when you have a good pick is just kind of astonishing. And yet, and still, they ended up in a good spot eventually, which is, it's a testament to the league's ability to pull guys to the middle. It's a testament to what good management can do. And there was a lot to clean up when James Jones got there. There was a lot to clean up. People questioned a lot of the things that he was doing when he first got there. It's like, why are you trading TJ Warren for nothing? Look what he just did in the bubble. Like, the Suns just traded that guy. What were they doing? They knew what they were doing. And then it became very clear what they needed to do after that bubble season was that they needed to get somebody to help them take the next step. And Chris Paul was the perfect player for that. It was the perfect player. I want to take a look at the Bucks as well. And how did they build after they got Giannis? Let's say Giannis is their Poku pick. That's their first player to come in to help them with their rebuild. They draft Jabari Parker, number 2, in 2014. 2015, Rashawn Vaughn at 17. 2016, Thon McCurr. 2017, DJ Wilson. 2018, Dante DiVincenzo. So we're talking 6 drafts from Giannis to DiVincenzo, which the 2018-19 season was the first time the Bucks got out of the first round since drafting Giannis. So it took them a while from 13-14, which is Giannis's rookie season, all the way to 18-19 to get out of the first round. And along the way, you get the number 2 pick, and you get these other picks in there, and you just miss. And yet, because you have this like screams the importance of having the guy and having a guy that can help your team and can become something great. I mean, you can even look at the Mavericks right now, where the Mavericks just got the right guy in Luka, and they didn't have to hit. The Bucks didn't have to hit. They made some good trades. Chris Middleton developed there. Like, they made it work. And that's where, and also like they've got good management there now. It took, I mean, you can look at the wreckage. We talked about the Suns, the wreckage that the bad management and bad ownership, frankly, took. It's bad. But this is where I think as a Thunder fan, you should be pretty excited. Is that one, like, you have a general manager that's not going to push the freaking button, and that is going to let this develop in the right way. they've already hit on draft number 1, which is Josh Giddey. We don't know where they're going to select in draft number 2. I feel like there's some good players in this upcoming draft. They're not all going to be good. We know that. We don't know who's going to end up being the bad player in the 2021 draft. Right now, it looks like Jalen Suggs. It could be he could still be good, and then we go as low as Davion Mitchell at 9. Kuminga could not develop from where he's at. However, like that was a great draft. And they picked the right guy in that draft. We're going into draft number 2. I mean, draft number 2 for the Bucks was Jabari Parker. Draft number 2 I guess you could even say it was Rashad Vaughn was draft number 2 for the Bucks. For the Suns, it's Alex Len, draft number 2. Now the Thunder could miss on this next draft. It's possible that the Thunder miss in this next draft. And I think that these 2 stories tell you that, one, there are going to be misses along the way. You're hoping that you don't miss 6 out of 10 drafts, really 7 out of 10 drafts, like you completely miss. You hope that you don't. You hope that you don't miss on, how many was that for the Bucks before they got to the second round? 6. They missed on 4 out of 6 drafts. You hope you don't miss on 4 out of 6. But the Bucks were praised for what they did with Giannis, and they've come out and said, "Yeah, we didn't really know." You hope you don't miss on that many. You hope that you can connect, and the Thunder have enough picks to be able to connect, certainly. But it is instructive to look back at teams like, how do we get there? Because you can't compare the Thunder to big market teams like the Nets or whoever. Not that you want to be the Nets today, but you can't make that comp. You can make the comp between teams like the Suns and the Bucks, who were built through trade in the draft. Like that's how those teams were primarily built. And the path to get to where they are today was, for the Suns, it was pick 13 working out for them, being extra horrible and getting Ayton and then Bridges. Like that's how they got there. And the Bucks' path was just being so incredibly lucky in getting Giannis at 15. Missing on the next season when you have the second pick. Like that was supposed to be the guy for them. They didn't think Giannis was going to be the guy. When they got Jabari, it was like, oh, this is Jabari Parker's team. This is great. And hopefully this Greek freak guy can do something. You just don't know. So to me, like if you compare these 2 scenarios and where the Thunder are at with pick number 2, like you have to be feeling pretty good at where they're at.
Me having not heard any of that and coming back into it while Andrew mutes himself. Yeah, I agree, Andrew. I think that's a great point you made. So the reason I had to leave was my wife really wanted our house to get cleaned before we had the baby. And the cleaners, they quoted us $250, Andrew. They showed up and quoted us $500. They doubled the quote, Andrew.
Oh no!
Yeah. So we had to turn them down. We had to send them away.
You sent them away,
which means I probably have to do the cleaning now.
Oh no! Oh no! Well, I just thought it would be kind of interesting to look back at teams and like how do the Thunder become them? I think one that I'd like to deep dive on maybe next week is the Celtics in particular, because they do have like the treasure trove of assets, portion of it that we have. And like how did they become who they are today? Like how many hits and how many misses did they have? I ran through the draft history of the Suns. It took 10 drafts for them to get to where they are today. And they missed on 6 out of 10 drafts.
Yeah.
I mean, they absolutely just missed. However, they are still, when healthy, a dominant team, even though they missed on 6 out of 10 drafts. Like, it just shows that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to have the perfect scenario to become a good team, to become a team that's good. You do, however, have to hit on a Devin Booker or a Giannis. And, with Giannis, it didn't matter. The other, they eventually got the pieces around him. For Devin Booker, they had to get Ayton, they had to get Bridges, they had to get Chris Paul. And to me, that seems like more of a path for an SGA team being really good is let's hit on these other pieces. Let's hit on 3 or 4 other pieces. And then perhaps you make a trade that puts you over the top, unless the Thunder if they draft Paulo Banchero and he's a star, then you don't have to take that model. But there is still a model out there. Are still ways to succeed outside of drafting a generational player,
Right.
and the Suns are living proof of that, because Ayton is not a generational big, but he was awesome last night and is one of the big reasons that they made the finals last year.
I heard you you're changing your tune a little on Paolo. You said you had him at 1B.
He's pretty good. He's pretty awesome.
Do you think there's a chance he could be your 1A? With a little more, just with a little more. Maybe you'll read a little more, watch a little more.
I mean, obviously he's not going to do anything else on tape. But he's awesome. I don't know if I will have him as my 1A just because of the defensive stuff that Chet can do that he can't. But man, if you were to pick a guy, who in this top 5 is going to be the guy, it would be tempting to not pick Paulo Banchero.
Yeah, I've definitely I felt different. I mean, I think I told you a couple of weeks ago. I felt different about him after reading the Dean on Draft article. Which
Dean.
Yeah, I mean, Dean's an interesting guy, and he has some very, very hot takes. But it was just helpful having someone compare him statistically to the guys he gets compared to. And realizing that, you know what? He actually is a much better, just statistically, a much better prospect than Julius Randle, much better prospect than Jabari Parker.
Boxing him in as one of those guys does him no justice whatsoever. It's really it's honestly unfair to him to do that.
And it also just doesn't make sense. He is so much more advanced as a passer, which when you think about this Thunder team and the type of players they've targeted, you start to realize he could actually fit in really well on this Thunder team.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are definitely my 1-2, I would say, at this point, in some order. He also made he made interesting points on Chet, which is if you're and we do this so much. Oftentimes, people do it in this draft. They'll say who's the next Jalen Brunson, who's the next Mikal Bridges, because those are the guys that are performing right now in the draft. And frankly, Mikal Bridges' archetype is always going to be valuable in the league no matter what.
Yep.
But he made the good point that if you're a young team and you're drafting, you need to be thinking about, will this player type be valuable in 5 years? Because that's mostly likely when you're actually going to be good. Is the player type you're drafting now, is it future proof?
Yeah.
In a sense. And he basically said, if you're all in on Chet over Paolo, you're betting on Chet being this one of one that just can't be replicated.
Yeah.
But if you start looking at some of these future draft classes, it's not impossible that we see more Chets in the future.
Sure.
I mean, arguably, Victor Wembanyama is a better version of Chet, and there's going to be more 7-foot ball handlers in the future. That feels like where the league's headed with the guys coming in these next couple of years. So that I thought that was an interesting argument. It's are you taking Chet because you actually think he's going to be the best of that version of player in 5 years, or are you just taking him because it feels scarce right now, and so you want to jump on it, but it might not be as scarce in 5 years, and maybe in 5 years you have the Clint Capella of that archetype, as opposed to whatever, the Jokic
Yeah.
or Embiid
Yeah, it
or the
def-
Evan Mobley.
yeah. Oh, it feels that it kind of does feel that way with Wembanyama and Mobley and Chet. Like it does feel they do feel similar.
Yeah.
And
And it does feel like Chet, at least for right now, you would rank him third among those three guys of that type of 7-foot ball handling, good defense type of prospect.
yeah, maybe it's so hard to know. I mean,
But either way, like that's why those are some of the reasons why I'm open to the idea of like if they got the number one pick and they took Paolo, I wouldn't be like upset. I still think I feel in my bones that they would take Chet,
yeah, I do too.
but who knows?
Yeah, I still love Chet. I think he's awesome. I think he would be great here. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. We are how many weeks away are we from the lottery? 3 weeks from the draft lottery night.
Is it May 16th,
17th?
17th?
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's coming up finally.
I know. It's not long, and then we will know how to really talk about these prospects and where the Thunder will pick
And who we take at 8 and 12.
who do we like at 8 and 12. Who are we talking to ourselves?
I guess I should say 8 and 13.
Yeah, who do we like at 8 and 13? That Pelicans pick, or the Pelicans doing what they did for us for the Clippers pick, is still just to me, it just feels like such a big deal. It may not end up being a big deal. Maybe Giannis is at 15 and we're just gonna screw that up.
Yeah.
But it does just feel it just still, like, to this day, feels like pretty significant to how the Thunder rebuild this team and how they eventually become a successful team again.
It was a nice little break to have, a nice little break to get. I wouldn't want to be. I mean, 15th wouldn't have felt bad either, but it's more just that even if there's a drop off at 11, you're going to have this selection of the first guys of the next tier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's where Devin Booker was taken. He was taken right in that little tier.
Oh, did you know that? But did you know that Giannis was taken at 15, Andrew?
What?
Oh, Jay just confirmed in our chat the lottery party.
Oh, good. Okay, this is great. I'm glad. I was about to end the pod a few minutes ago. I'm glad we did. May 17th, we are having a lottery party at the Jones Assembly. Arrive at 6:00. Hang out with us. It's going to be incredible. We will have the lottery playing on some kind of big screen there. It's a good big place for us to gather. If you haven't been there, it's a super cool place to hang out, especially on a May early evening. Should be great. So, be there 6:00, the Jones Assembly, for the Down to Dunk NBA lottery party.
And there's even more fun stuff coming.
Yeah, there's even more. Sauce asked, do we need to RSVP? You don't have to, but you could. Just,
You can just tweet at us.
just send us a little tweet.
DM.
Yeah. So.
Oh, did you see Jay's follow-up tweet? It still feels pretty good.
Still feels pretty good. All right. Yeah. Be there or be square. It's going to be fun. All right. Thanks so much for joining us on today's show. We will talk to you guys again on Friday. Maybe L-Man will have another big time deep dive. I don't know. I guess you'll have to tune in to find out. We will be live around probably 6:30 a.m. on Friday. You can join us on YouTube. If you're listening to just the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can hit the little bell to get alerts on when we go live. You can join us. Jonathan Watkins says, hello from Pig Out Palace in Henrietta, Oklahoma. The L-Man and I used to frequent the Pig Out Palace, by the way.
That is that a chain or is the only?
Oh no! This is a Henrietta staple.
Why do I why have I been there? Why would I have gone there? I remember that name, but why
Yeah,
would I have been in?
we go there on our way to
Henrietta?
the lake with Elman. We had Pig Out Palace T-shirts.
Yeah, because I remember what the little character looks like. The pig.
Yeah. Shout out Pig Out Palace. All right, you guys have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you guys again on Friday.